16.6 million. That was the overall rating, TV rating for Texas and Ohio State. That's pretty good. That is the most watched season opener for college football of all time by a lot. You go back to 2017. Florida State played Alabama in a week one, and it was about 12 million people. This one is 16.6 and peaked late in the game at 18.6 million people. That is ridiculous. That's 6-8 million people more than the highest ever before. So you had the highest and most watched College Game Day episode of all time by double, and you had a game in Texas and Ohio State that was the most watched and viewed of any on an opening weekend by a lot.
I think it's fair to say, too, if you're just a casual football fan, don't watch tons of football like we do, that game, too, wasn't the most entertaining from a scoring standpoint. I mean, that was a defensive battle.
I thought it was a great.
I know, but
it was a frustrating game.
I'm saying
as a Longhorn
the
fan.
common, someone who don't watch as much football as you and I, or
it was a lot of punts,
a lot of defense. Yes,
but that was to be expected if you're paying attention. But you're right. I mean, for the common fan, they want to see it go up and down the field.
I think it speaks volumes.
And they wanted to see Arch, and then Arch started to play bad and did play bad. So that was like, oh man, you're watching a train wreck here. How bad is this going to get for Arch Manning? So there's a lot of that. But at the same time, you can say, well, that was an outlier because it was Arch Manning. 2023 was the most watched college football season of all time for all the portal is ruining college football fans out there. It sucks now like it didn't used to. Well, that might be for you, but the most watched was 2023. Last year eclipsed it by a lot, and now this one's off to a record-breaking start of 2025. Seems like football fans actually like the portal and the movement. And
these week one matchups that are awesome.
People don't mind players getting paid. That was always told to me, though, that's going to ruin college football. Okay. But I don't judge it based just solely off popularity. They still need rules and regulations and guardrails and all the things they're trying to implement. Same time, the games have never been more viewed and popular. I like that. I've always argued for players getting paid in the billion-dollar industry that it is, and now there's more movement. But the fans are buying it. The fans are in, and I think we'll see that again this weekend.
For the ESPN games, because you're talking about the Fox game, obviously the big noon kickoff was the game of the weekend, Texas-Ohio State. But even Notre Dame-Miami on Sunday night on ABC.
They had 4 games over 10 million viewers. They had 4 games over the weekend that almost eclipsed or were equal to that Alabama-Florida State game that I mentioned that was the number one most viewed game.
Yeah, exactly.
On a week one.
Yeah, the Miami-Notre Dame, the Florida-FSU this season, and then LSU-Clemson all over 10 million there on ABC. So pretty impressive stuff.
Well, and the Belichick game with North Carolina would have done that.
6.1 million, but
everybody tuned out.
The game was over.
I'm sure it peaked at a good number, and then everybody's like, well, this game's over.
The game is over.
So you're not going to get a very competitive game. As for the Longhorns, is it fair? No, it is fair. It is fair to say that at this point, the Texas red zone issues are a disease for the program.
Yes.
Is that too strong?
No,
because you can go back.
It's prohibited them.
Sark is 3-8 against top 10 teams.
Yeah, that's not good.
And the disease of the red zone and Sark and his teams, whatever. Because a lot of them are his play calls, some of them are execution. We can go through all that, but the fact is it's been an ongoing problem against very good teams. And it's costing them these games.
I'm starting to see the James Franklin memes with Sarkisian's
it's his
face.
Kryptonite. I mean, Texas, they were 54th nationally last year in red zone touchdown percentage, which was their highest finish of the Sark era. That was their highest, 54th. We're talking about 101st 2 years ago, 120th, 2023. This is a problem for Sark, and whether he wants to admit it or not, I think he would admit it in a quiet time. But I will say this again. To be specific from this past Saturday, Noah, I've done a couple rewatches of this game, and the clips and the highlights and the All-22 film study to me of this game reveals what I felt in real time. The main culprit for the Longhorns' red zone deficiencies in Columbus was a young quarterback not executing what I thought were solid play calls. And I'm not excusing Sark for all the other previous failures. This was on the quarterback.
Yep.
More often than it for sure on the play call. Because people talk about ripping Sark's play calling duties. That's fine. I mean, those things will be discussed. But in this game, in their 2 appearances inside the 10-yard line where they got 0 points. Remember, Texas's defense, Ohio State had the ball 10 times on Saturday. They scored on 2 of them.
And that was the only other times they crossed the 50.
Right. They punted 8 times.
Yeah.
And there was a drive 80 yards that was aided by 2 Texas penalties that also they had to go for it on 4th down from the 1-yard line and scored.
Right.
They also had a 40-yard touchdown pass after an arch interception where they took advantage of the momentum swing and hit a big one, the one time in the game. But on 8 of the drives they stopped them. You should be able to win a game when you allow 11 first downs, 14 points, to a team. I don't care. As I said, coming in on Monday, Labor Day. You give me those stats, I tell you, my pick of Texas 23, Ohio State 16, I still feel great about that without seeing the score. But Texas's problem is, you realize Texas would have what Sark would call a successful drive, where they moved the football across midfield and had positive yards, which at least flips the field position or gets you close to a field goal. Texas had 5 of those in the game of their 10 drives. Ohio State only had 2. And of those 5, what you would label successful drives, Texas only scored 7 points.
Yeah.
And this is why they lost. But again, back to the red zone diagnosis here. I looked at all of them. Texas had 10 red zone plays on Saturday that were inside the 10-yard line. Okay, 10 plays. Well, inside what you call the red zone.
Yeah, right.
But then specifically plays that crossed into first and goal situations, there were 8 of them. They had a pretty good success rate, and I've said this a lot since 6 o'clock this morning, but going back and watching the tape, there were 4 plays of those 8 plays inside the 10-yard line that were goal-to-go situations that should have been touchdowns. Should have been touchdowns.
Yeah.
And I know shoulda, coulda, woulda does nothing for anybody, but you cannot put that on Sark's play call. And I will tell you exactly what the 4 plays are. There was a play on first and goal where they ran an RPO with Arch. And isn't Arch Manning's legs, aren't his legs supposed to be a big part of this offense and
they are.
Help them unlock the red zone? And so I'm going to give Sark this grace and this credit. On those 4 plays, he was trying to use the legs threat of Arch and put it to his advantage. On the first RPO, 8 Ohio State defenders bit on the play fake to C.J. Baxter and took at least a step towards the play. There was also a bubble screen. There were 3 options on this RPO. Fake the run, which, Arch can hand it to him or pull it out. He pulled it out, but it worked. The play fake had the Ohio State defense biting. Then there was a DeAndre Moore bubble screen option with a blocker, or Arch could have taken off out the left side and scored a touchdown. If he had taken it outside the left side and scored a touchdown, it would have been a touchdown. Because what he did was throw it to DeAndre Moore for a 1.5-yard gain. That was not the read.
Yeah.
The read was certainly not give it to CJ because he would have got collapsed. But the defensive end on that play completely collapsed, and Arch threw it instead of running. Touchdown. And this is everything we talked about for the entirety of the offseason. Within that same series, Sark calls a great play, and I alluded to it with Jerry Hamilton last hour. He goes empty, which everybody on the Ohio State defense is like, okay, empty, watch Arch's legs. But here comes Trey Wisner, who was flanked out to the left on the short side. He's coming like, okay, now he's going to stand next to Arch, and that's going to be a handoff or RPO. Instead, he fakes the stopping and takes off the other way, which floods the right side of the field, the wide side, with receivers, and now a running back is out there in an empty set. There was a tight end in the game, by the way, so it wasn't completely empty. But Arch was back there by himself when the play began. But the motion created, plus it gave you the defensive read of what you want. They were in man defense because the defender followed him. On the snap, great play call. Sark calls a quarterback counter back to the short side. Connor Robertson, the Texas center, peels out in a pool, and all Arch has to do is get in his hip pocket and follow him into the end zone. Right. The only thing Connor Robertson has to do is block a 178-pound safety or cornerback named Davison Igbinosun. If he blocks him, which you would trust your center to do at 300 pounds, or at least get in his way, Arch at 21 miles an hour is going to score a touchdown. Didn't do it. What did he do? He let Connor Robertson get outside, and he cut up to where the defense was and got tackled for a 2-yard gain. So those are 2 plays that should have been touchdowns with Arch's legs, and we would all be sitting here going, man, great job by Sark. Play calls, using Arch's legs in the red zone. This is what we're talking about. Didn't happen. Didn't execute them. I'm sure they're watching it on film right now, and Arch is kicking himself. But then the next time down from the 8-yard line on 3rd and 3, it was because it was further away, 2 pass plays. One on a crossing route with the mesh concept where Spencer Shannon and Ryan Wingo crossed at the first down marker. And it wasn't 3rd and goal. It was 3rd and 3 to get a first down and set up 1st and goal. We all saw it. Ryan Wingo was wide open at the sticks. He missed the throw, threw it behind him. And then on the next play, which I thought was maybe the best play call of all the red zones, he goes trips right with the Ryan Wingo on the wide side. They run, there's 2 receivers inside of him, Parker Livingstone and DeAndre Moore. Ohio State's clearly in man coverage. And they clear out with the 2 inside receivers, and DeAndre Moore does a great job of rubbing the man cover of Ryan Wingo. It wasn't a pick. It was really clean, but he slowed down the corner enough, got in his way, and Ryan Wingo flashed wide open, clear. It's for sure a catch. If you throw it right in his gut, it's a first down.
Right.
I think because he's at full speed and Caleb Downs is standing there, it's a touchdown. He's got to drag Caleb Downs into the end zone, and it's a touchdown. These are plays that Sark drew up, they worked on, and they didn't execute them. The red zone issues have to be resolved, but I am not going to blame that game and two missed touchdowns on bad play calls. They were great play calls, both with Arch's legs and with his arm.
I agree. If anything, it's the situation's so tough because the game is going to slow down for Arch Manning as time goes on. Plain and simple. You cannot emulate exactly how this game was going to go, know exactly what Matt Patricia was doing as a defensive coordinator who's won Super Bowls. Let's not call that. And you have NFL players on that team led by Caleb Downs and the rest of the crew. Like, the game is going to slow down. He'll watch the film on what happened, and he'll see those options as time goes on. It's just part of becoming a quarterback. Those out-of-body experiences like Joel Klatt had in Kansas State, that's even different.
I feel really bad for Sark. I don't feel bad for Sark. He makes $11 million.
Yeah,
but because that we would have been heralding him if he follows Connor Robertson into the end zone.
Right.
We're talking about great creativity, Sark. Great job. Use the deception. Use Arch's legs. Great block. You created the matchup you wanted. This is what you couldn't do with Quinn Ewers.
Right, but
instead we're talking about failures in the red zone again. Right. Two missed opportunities to score 14 points. And as this text says, and if they just kick 2 field goals on fourth down, they have a chance to win the game. And
that is 2020, sure. Exactly. There's that as well. Like nothing was perfect from this game. But I will say this is what they're looking over. They are going to watch the tape. They're going to see those options. They're going to be in the red zone in the goal.
Arch has to slow down.
He does.
He has to slow down.
People just
play.
I just think the fact that you're playing at Ohio State, one of the hardest places to play.
I was happy to do the deep dive, but at the same time, I think we have to say that because people just get in general conversation. It's like Sark's play calling. I'm telling you, Sark's play calling in those instances I thought was top shelf. And you go watch it for yourself and tell me you disagree. Has Sark, because of over a 4-year period, the red zone has been a problem? Does he own a lot of that and some of it? Absolutely. But now he does have a quarterback who does have legs. That gives me optimism that this red zone package will improve as the year goes on and Arch slows down. Because that same play I just described, that's going to be a really hard play for anybody to stop, even if you know it's coming. Because there are 3 options, and Arch is a good athlete.
Triple op.
And you've got to cover them all. You have to crash on C.J. Baxter. You have to cover the flat because they flooded it. You have to, and if that's a good play, that you can come back to that. It's now on tape. And it's going to be tough to stop even if you knew it was coming because it's what RPO game does. It's what a quarterback's legs do to make it 11-on-11 football. Speaking of quarterbacks who would have run that ball a couple times, one of them is Vince Young. Vince Young and Mac Brown on the Stampede podcast last night had this thought on what they took from the Ohio State loss.
When you get in that red zone, you have to punch it in. You know, we take care of that, take care of the penalties, it's 21-14, game over, you know. And that's how tough it is, and that's how tight it is in these type of games, how much you have to be so prepared and so well ready to go to play because one mistake will hurt your drive.
When you start looking at football games from a coaching standpoint, there's 7 to 10 plays and situations that make a difference in a win and loss. And that's why people get frustrated when the head coach says, we played well. Well, it's 7 plays. And we didn't make those 7 plays, but the guys played well. I thought in looking at it, it's 2 playoff teams, 2 of the best coaches in the country, 2 of the best atmospheres in the country. Football programs are really important at both places. And unlike 05, when we beat them, they were out of the national championship game. Now you're not.
Nope, you're still in it, and get better. Also, our buddy Nick Shuley, who's about to join us, he's actually in the house and will join us coming up for the 6-pack, the 4-pack. He sent us a clip from the 3rd and Longhorn podcast, because another thing that didn't happen, despite all the positives of the 14-7 loss, the defense didn't force a turnover. They were not able to get the ball on the ground, and especially when Bomeister was punting them deep and had them in the shadow of the goal line. That's where you want to make an impact play, force a turnover, force a negative play. They almost had a safety. But it got called back by another one of those dreaded defensive penalties and self-inflicted wounds. But here is a clip from the 3rd and Longhorn podcast talking about the defense.
For me, I want to see this Texas defense take the football away. That's what we hung our hat on last season, creating turnovers. Well, I like our odds as a Texas defense. I need to see us take the football away, whether that's tracking the ball and picking off interceptions, whether that's punching at the football once you got a guy wrapped up, whether that's a sack, strip, fumble, whatever it looks like. I need to see us turn the football over, especially with this young offense that we've had that we're going to try to grow throughout the season. This defense, we got to lean on them. And in order to do that, we got to start taking the football away and getting in the rhythm of doing that nice and early in the season.
We'll hear Sark talking about that too. Complementary football is what it is. We played a good in a lot of phases, a lot of places in that game, while running game, defense, but we didn't complement it. When Bomeister punts it deep, we got to force a play. We can't let them move it off the goal line and get better field position. We've got to play better for our young offense, and it's just got to complement one another. When you do, that's when you're really, really playing good football. And I thought Ohio State did that to a T. They weren't great, but they didn't make a mistake. They didn't make a turnover. They didn't hurt their offense, and they played a really, really clean first game. So credit to them.